Good afternoon, welcome to Rundlii Gaming. We're going to be doing a video on the game of Lord of the Rings Deck Builder. This is a little bit, slightly older game, like 2012-ish, roughly. And this is based around the game of Lord of the Rings. And what you're trying to do is deck build and defeat the arch enemies in this particular game. And you're kind of sort of working together. If you've ever played a game called like Legendary, it's kind of a co-op-ish game, but you can still affect each other. The goal is to get the most victory points at the end of the game, but you still kind of have a common cause as far as what the goal itself is. At the beginning of the game, you're going to start out with 6 of these courage cards, and courage is kind of like 1 money. So if you draw one of these, you could effectively say it's 1 money. In this game, money is called power. So basically you're going to gain power in order to defeat or purchase, depending on how you look at it, different cards in the thing, which will then add to your deck itself. Then you have despair, which don't actually do anything, but they just kind of fill up your hand. They have no bonuses to it, so there's no like power associated with it. So it's just strictly a blank card. And then afterwards you'll choose one of different people. You have like Legolas, Samwise, Arwen, Aragorn, Gimli, Gandalf, Frodo, and Boromir. And they're going to start out with a specific card that only goes to that particular individual. So this kind of helps customize your deck a little bit, but it's not going to be a huge customization because it's just one additional card that someone else does not have. It's kind of like an additional starter card. So each of them kind of cater to different types of playstyle. So it is kind of useful as far as that goes, because you can, with like Arwen, for example, this will help you against like ambush attacks, because there are some cards that will pop up, they'll ambush and do bad things, but whenever she ambushes, she draws cards from doing so. And then Aragorn would have a different type of benefit, same with Legolas, etc. So each of them are going to be very different as far as how they can do different abilities. But let's go ahead and just add, let's say we're going to add Arwen to our deck here. So you would normally draw your 3 despair, your 6 courage, and then you'll have this other starter card, and that's your starting deck. So this is what you're going to shuffle at the beginning of the game, as far as beginning the deck building game here. And we'll just kind of set this aside. It just kind of shows who you are. It really won't have any effect for the rest of the game. Afterwards, you can have a couple generic decks here. These are despair, so in the case you get rid of any despair, you can just throw them in a stack here. Corruption. Corruption just kind of add to your deck, but they actually give you negative victory points at the end of the game. And then Valor are kind of like generic cards that you can use for getting additional power. So some statistics some numbers that are on this card. It's in the bottom corner here. You're going to see a little number. It's like a little black circle. And this is going to tell you how many victory points it's worth. So in this case, this one's worth 1 victory point. You're going to see a bigger number over here. And that one, in this case, if this card says 3, it means it's 3 cost. Then you'll have like a text box up here, which will explain what kind of ability it has. This one's just a very generic one. It just says +2 power. So if I drop this card, I'm going to get 2 power. And then it's going to tell you what type of card this is. This one's a maneuver. And then you have like corruption and despair. The next thing you're going to do is set up the deck for the arch enemy. Nazgul will always be the top one. And as you can see with this one, he's worth 4 victory points. He costs 8 to defeat. Whenever you defeat him, he'll actually go into your deck, so you can actually use him afterward. In the case of this card, it gives you +2 power, so it's just kind of another generic card, but it's worth a lot more victory points. He's your level 1 arch enemy, so he's always going to start out as your first arch enemy. And then you're going to go through the deck and randomly choose 3 of the level 2s, so these will always be random. And I kind of set all these other ones aside already. You're going to pick 3 random level 3s, and then at the bottom of the deck you'll always have Lurtz. He's always going to be the last boss in the game. So that is how you set up the archenemy deck. And once you have that set up, you have one more thing to set up, which is going to be what they call the path on here. And the path is pretty much like your buying pool. This is the stuff that you can purchase as you play the game. So 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's kind of a variety of stuff here. So you have like the green cards here, they're ally cards. It's just a different type. Then you have like your artifacts, which are the blue ones. Locations are the purple ones. The locations will actually stay in play, so it's something that will be like an ongoing effect. Like at this one, at the end of each of your turns, draw an extra card. So this will constantly give you additional cards every round. So that one's really good to have as well. And there are a lot of other ones as well. Of course, you have maneuvers, which I've showed you maneuvers over here. You can also get enemies in the deck. So these are like some of your orc type monsters. And then of course there's more locations. It's a pretty wide range of stuff, and a lot of them have different abilities and can kind of do different things for you depending on what kind of deck you want to build. And the goal of the game, as I mentioned, is to defeat all the different bosses you have here. Once this deck runs out, you guys win the game, and you can total up your points. So however many points each player has, you compare them and see who wins. Also, if this deck runs out, it kind of means you took too long in the game, and that will also end the game. In that case, if it ended before anyone was able to actually defeat all the bosses, then the heroes end up losing. So, I'll kind of go over a few rounds here just to kind of show you different things you can do. Probably not the best board because it is pretty costly to do anything on here. You'll start off by drawing 5 cards. And so in this case, we have one of our maneuvers, we have a despair, we have a despair, and we have 2 courage. So on this particular one, we have +1 power, and then we have a defense ability. So if we were to discard this, if there was an ambush that would occur, and I'll show you what those do as well, then you could discard this to draw cards. But in this case, we only have 3 power. The only thing we can actually purchase is the Horn of Gondor here. So for each different non-starter card type among cards you play or have played this turn, he'll get +1 power. So he doesn't start out with any, so as long as it's not a starter card, so let's say if you play a maneuver, a location, an ally, and an artifact, he could be worth a lot more, power if you were to play him with that. So it's good to have variety with this guy. And then once you have all your stuff played, you go ahead and throw it to your discard pile, and then you go ahead and draw back up to 5. And I'll just display them for you. As I mentioned, I did kind of draw another card, and I now have 5 power in this particular round. So again, I could continue buying things. Let's say I'm just going to go ahead and buy this one real quick. Yeah, we're going to do a couple reveals here until we find something. So I'll go ahead and draw back up to 5. Now normally these will keep drawing, and this is actually kind of a card I was looking for, is that you'll have an ambush card. Now whenever the ambush comes out, because you're actually going to draw these cards at the end of the round to replace them, the ambush is going to hit the next player. So let's say this is a 3-player game, I just played my turn, it goes to the person on my left here, and then this new card is drawn, this one's an ambush. Choose and discard 2 cards on this ambush. But let's say that were to have hit me. You can sometimes discard some of these maneuver cards if it has a defense on it. Basically use this as a defense against the ambush. Because they'll say, defense, you may discard this card to avoid an attack or ambush. If you do, draw 2 cards. So that's like the benefit of this kind of card. But if you did not have that, and this were to have hit you, you're going to have to discard 2 cards because there's no way to protect against it otherwise. If you do defeat this, because let's say once it ambushes, you could buy this card, and it still gets added to your deck. So you can get a lot of these enemy cards, but these ambushes do come up every so often and will negatively impact you as well. Some other things to go over is, as I mentioned, the main objective of the game itself here is to defeat this entire stock here. So, in this case, when I defeat the power on the bottom, which is 8, I'll put this into my deck. So that'll eventually go into my deck. Once this gets flipped over, it's going to have a group ambush. The group ambushes are a little bit different than a regular ambush because it hits everybody at the table. In most cases, you can prevent against it, but I know there are some of these guys that do make it to where you can't protect against it. But in this case, like, each player reveals a random card from his or her hand. Destroy each revealed card that shared a cost with another revealed card. So this cave troll here is going to actually destroy a bunch of cards at the table here, depending on which ones are revealed. So, and each of these usually have another special ability like that, and then so on and so forth. And as I said, most of these can be fairly random, except for the top one, which is Nazgul, and then alerts here. Because alerts is also going to always be the same. You can also fight the Balrog, the Witch King, Saruman, and yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different bad guys. And then also, once you've played the game a whole bunch and you want a little bit extra of a challenge, they have this little extra deck here, which has a lot of secret bad guys on it. And these are supposed to be what they call impossible mode. So if you feel that this game's not challenging enough as is, you can go ahead and play with this deck next, and this should give you a little bit extra of a challenge. But that's pretty much the game of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. This, as I mentioned, is fairly simplistic deck builder. It's really, really easy to learn and play. Because, as I mentioned, you kind of just have the one stat, which is power, and then you're trying to get the most victory points at the end of the game, and that's kind of depending on what kind of stuff you purchase and how you build up the deck. As you gain corruption, corruption will put negatives into your deck, and it also makes it to where they're kind of dead draws as well. Because if you draw a corruption, you can't use it because it has nothing on it. Because the only thing on the card itself, it's kind of like a despair in that sense. Despair has just blank text on it. If you draw despair, it's kind of a dead card in your hand. Hopefully you can get rid of it at some point, but you're kind of stuck with it until you do. As I mentioned, the locations you can put into play, and they kind of build up new effects as it goes. So a lot of times these are really useful to have. And then all the other cards just have specific effects. Usually the trait on it, like artifact or enemy or ally, those don't make a huge deal either way of how you build them, but a lot of times there is a little bit of working together. For example, if you have like some of the Legolas cards, he works really good with other allies. So if you have a bunch of allies, he's a really awesome card. A lot of the orcs, if you have tons of orcs to work together, they actually become really good as well. I didn't really mess with a whole lot of artifact stuff, but I'm pretty sure there's an equivalent in there as well that deals more specifically with artifacts. So if you have a bunch of artifacts, they tend to trigger amongst each other and can do special abilities as well. But yeah, so that's the game of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll try to have another one posted next week. I have changed my videos to Thursdays now, so if you are watching for new videos, it should be posted every Thursday. But thank you for watching Rundlii Gaming, and you have a good day.